Do you agree with J. Max Davis and city school districts? 'Cause I don't agree with that.
Well, it's a great question, and I think there are certainly some advantages. I'm a big local control kind of person because that's how you get better decision making, when you're closer to the people making the decisions. But I also don't think that it's going that making a city school district is going to be a panacea, because there are so many deep problems at the state level that we can take on at the legislature. I think one of the main problems is the fact that right now the school board is just giving out waivers like crazy for the law that requires that 65% of funding be spent directly on students rather than administration. That is a state law, that's a Georgia requirement, and yet routinely school boards are issuing waivers saying, oh no, you can spend more than that on administration and bureaucracy. And that's what's causing, we're having some very overpaid superintendents facing, very difficult scandals. Macon is an example of a place where they hired someone who has now moved out of the country, and they can't even get to him to get the records that they need to find out what exactly is going on. So that's, I think, one of the big problems. And city school districts are not going to address that. So I think if we did do any kind of city school district, it would need to be as like a package of reforms to really address the needs of the entire state. We also have to look at the accreditation proceedings. Right now, accreditation sounds great. We've got standards, we're accredited. Well, you could have a 0% graduation rate and still be accredited. So accreditation is something that's being done by a lot of private entities, frankly, like SACS, and our Department of Education, it's kind of like, what are we paying them for? Shouldn't be that be their job to keep an eye on what's going on in education around the state? So I think we've got to make some structural changes at the state level rather than just focusing on what would be good for our community. Because honestly, we can be a model for the entire state. House District 8, great place to live, and we can be a model. Maybe it's going to include a local school district, maybe it is going to include that local control, but it can't happen without that package of reforms that will help everybody in the entire state.
So we all know that over the last several years, education has been underfunded by hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and currently this year, even with an increase, we jumped up to still underfunding, according to the QBE, about $250 million. That's resulted in teacher furloughs, that results in much larger class sizes. All of those less instructional days, period. There are a lot of schools in the state, and even in the North Atlanta metro area, that don't get 180 days. My question then is, those are the things that correlate most directly to student success and achievement, particularly class sizes. Would you support fully funding state education under the QBE?
Well, I hate to disagree with you on this, but I'm not sure that underfunding is the cause of our problems. I agree, students and teachers are getting shortchanged. There's no question about that. We've got some schools that have as many as 35, 40 trailers where kids are being crammed in like sardines. So there's no question that the money isn't getting to the right places. I completely agree that class size, teacher quality. We've got teachers who are having to buy supplies out of their own pockets, and that's just unacceptable. But I do think that the system as a whole, there is substantial money being diverted to administrative salaries that doesn't need to be. Honestly, it's become, the APS cheating scandal probably didn't need to consume the level of attention that it did, but it really did show the problems with kind of the national testing standards that schools are having to operate under. There's just a lot of money being spent on things other than teachers and students. So I'm certainly not ruling out, I'm certainly not saying we don't need to direct more money towards teachers and students, but I find the idea of, fully funding education, I don't want to fully fund the current state of the weight of superintendents. I don't want to fully fund a school board that hands out waivers like candy and tells the school board members at their statewide conference, oh, don't worry about these standards, we'll give you a waiver. What's the point of having standards?
With that, all the direct or captive time is taken. I would welcome each of you to hang around and have more in-depth conversations with anyone here. There's refreshments in the back, ice cold beer and water.
And hot coffee.
And we got coffee if any.